All right, Miss Sophia, I think it's we're good to go.
Hi, my name is Sophia Emmanuel, and I'm a trichologist and cosmetologist. And today I have the pleasure of speaking to the CEO of NeoGenesis, which is a hair care or a skincare and hair care company. Also with Mackenzie Grigware, we're going to be talking about some of my case studies that I've been using with my clients who are experiencing different types of hair loss using the NeoGenesis hair thickening serum. Hi, Steve. How are you today?
Sophia, it's so good to be here with you. I'm in a good mood. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. I'm so happy that you are allowing me to work with yourself and your company. Trying to help women who I help in my salon with hair loss because it's such an epidemic. So I'm happy to be here today.
Oh my God. And what I'm excited about is over today and these next few visits that we'll have together on this platform is that you're going to get to share more about your passion because you have such a passion for helping people in general, but you have a real passion for helping people with hair concerns.
Yes,
Tell us
I
a
do.
little bit about like how you got into trichology because that's an advanced science.
Yes, it is an advanced science, and I think a lot of people, when they Google trichology, can get a little bit confused about what trichology really is. So I'll just say shortly that trichology is basically the science of the hair and scalp and diseases of the hair and scalp. So any scalp disorder or any hair concerns such as hair loss, psoriasis, seborrheic dermatitis, chronic itching or burning, tingling of the scalp, hair breakage. Those are some of the things that myself or other trichologists can help with. So basically, that's what trichology is. And me having a passion for it started with basically not really being able to help my clients through the years as a hairstylist. They would come in with different hair concerns, specifically hair loss, and I really didn't know how to help them. So that's when I did a little bit of research and I found this company called IAT, the International Association of Trichologists, and that was how I was able to start my career in the field of trichology. And it's really helped me to help a lot of women figure out the underlying causes of their hair loss because a lot of people don't know that, hair loss can be started from like some type of, medical condition that you may be having. Sometimes it's more so of your hair care practices. So it really allows me to like identify the kind of hair loss the person is dealing with and then tell them what are the solutions available, whether that be in the salon or with a doctor or with a dermatologist as well. So that's how that works. That was my passion for it. That's where my passion started, basically not being able to help people, not having answers for them when they would ask me, why is my hair falling? You know what I mean?
I just like the fact that you didn't give up on looking for answers.
Right, exactly.
You
Yes. Oh,
know, it
yeah.
speaks
So,
to your professionalism, it speaks to your discipline as
right.
a professional, and it also speaks to your compassion for your
Yes.
clients that you're constantly hunting for
For
solutions. And
answers, right. And that's how
yeah,
I was able to stumble upon NeoGenesis. And I just was really impressed with the work that you guys are doing, especially in the stem cell, area. It just really was, it just really stood out to me. And that's the reason why I decided to go and use the product. I like the science behind the product. And that's the reason why I'm here today to share these case studies.
yeah, and what I want to say from our perspective,
Hmm.
we are so tightly connected with our clinicians. You are so important to us. We're
Right,
in product research and development, right? You're
right,
a clinician, you're in the clinic, you're dealing with those live cases. So we
right.
have the symbiotic relationship of studying what goes on with your clients, with other clinicians' clients, to know what our products are doing and what we can do to keep improving the performance of our products. And I now know that with the case studies we're initiating with you, we're going to have even more data points that I'm
Right.
really excited for your audience to see and
Yes.
see what we're able to do together over the next 6 months.
Yes, and another thing I would like to point out too is that the opportunity to be able to do research for people of color or women of color specifically, because that's who I deal with a lot, is women of color who have really special, particular, specific types of hair loss that really affect the hair follicle in a way where sometimes the hair is not able to grow back. So by doing these case studies, I'll be able to basically, work with those types of women who are overlooked a lot of times in this industry to give them the help that they need as well. So that is also another reason why I'm passionate about this, because it allows me to work on their hair loss that's not really pretty. You know, it's not the most, it's one of the most popular prominent types of hair loss, but it's also not the most sexiest hair loss because there's not a lot of options available for them. So this allows them to have an alternative option should they decide to use it.
Yeah, and that's where I was really excited, as was Mackenzie, when you reached out to us because you do focus on women of color, of the ethnicities with higher Fitzpatrick's.
Right.
And we're really wanting to serve that population segment because, as you said, it's so underserved, it's so
Yeah.
overlooked, but
Right.
such beautiful people, typically inside and out. And
Right.
if we can be of help, because hair loss really has an impact on self-esteem, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely has a great impact on self-esteem. And then also too, a lot of times what ends up happening is that people suffer in silence. They may not speak about it, or when they go to their doctor, the doctor may not really even, identify it as something that's important. So that's another reason why it's constantly being overlooked by doctors when they go in, because it's just not something that doctors are willing to really, look into unless it's affecting, a person's health severely. But usually, if it's a situation where it's a cicatricial alopecia, where it's affecting hair follicles, it's assumed that it's because it's some kind of, damage that is being caused to the scalp, and that's not always the case. So these case studies will allow us to show that, hair loss can happen for several different reasons, and these are some alternative treatments that you can use in the process of, trying to, keep your hair on your head, basically, keep your hair healthy.
I like that. So let's look. I know we've got starting points on 3 case studies that we're going to be executing together. We'll talk a little bit more about the science behind the hair thickening serum as well. But let's
Yes.
start by just looking at the starting points on each of these 3 case studies and you describing what the background was of each of these patients and what you
Okay.
recommended for the overall strategy, because we're one part of a strategy. We like to always say,
Right.
you're the expert, we're a part of your practice, not the other way around.
Exactly. Okay, so for this first case study, this is a very common hair loss that I see in my salon a lot, and it's called traction alopecia. So now with traction alopecia, that is caused by pulling the hair follicles too tight. So some of the hairstyles that can affect some hairstyles affect this type of hair loss, or trigger this type of hair loss. So that would be like braids, tight buns, ponytails, hair extensions. Not just wearing these hairstyles, but wearing them for an extended period of time. So if it's your go-to hairstyle that you're always wearing all the time, traction alopecia can result. And it doesn't just have to be with braids, with added hair. It can also be with ponytails and buns. Seen a lot of times with dancers or ballerinas, by pulling their hair back a lot, they tend to get traction alopecia. And it starts off sometimes in the front of the hairline, and what happens is that the hairline just thins out over time. But it's not just only in the front hairline. You can also experience traction in the back of the head as well, and sometimes in the center. So there's some other areas of the scalp that can be affected with traction alopecia. So for her, for a patient like her, or a client like her, because I'm not a doctor, so I can't say patient, but what we would use is basically, first we would educate, or I would educate her on proper scalp care. So, I had to basically explain to her that certain hairstyles are going to need to be avoided. And those hairstyles, like I mentioned before, are anything that adds tension to the scalp. And also, too, just keeping her hair in a style where it's free and it's open and it's less pulling. So that's one of the most important things with traction alopecia, basically, is just wearing hairstyles that do not pull the hair, because this type of hair loss is it's very preventable if you stop doing the hairstyles that cause it. Now it can take a deeper turn, and you can have even more damage to your skin. In that case, the hair won't grow back in certain spots of the scalp, if you continue wearing these types of hairstyles, because inflammation takes over the hair follicle, and it will cause scarring to develop. And when that scar tissue develops, you can actually lose hair follicle in that specific area of the scalp. So it's very important that traction alopecia be taken seriously, and that women or men, excuse me, are educated on proper scalp care with this specific condition. And then other treatments that were recommended for her that she's using right now is the NeoGenesis serum. She's also using she's also getting anti-inflammatory shots, injections with her dermatologist. She's using Viviscal professional hair supplements, and that's it right now. So those are the four things that she's doing to try to enhance growth. So although she may not see hair regrowth, what will happen is that the hair thickening serum and all the other components that we're using should prevent further hair loss. But she really has to focus on not wearing the braids as much if she really wants to see more impact with her scalp. And that could be the challenge sometimes, is getting people to understand that, certain hairstyles can cause hair loss. And if you're doing all these treatments and spending all this money investing to, try to get it back in shape, to get your hair to grow back, or to get your hair to just be healthy, you're really doing yourself an injustice by wearing these types of hairstyles all the time. So
Good.
scalp health is really important here.
So, a couple of questions for you from what
Mhm.
you said. What is the physical age of this person?
Okay, so the physical age of this person is 40.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
And how long has she been braiding her hair, and how long has she been doing things that would contribute to the traction alopecia?
I would say off and on all her life, which is something that is also very common. A lot of times when we were younger, as teenagers, we didn't know that these hairstyles could cause this kind of damage, because we were taught that, braiding your hair was basically resting your hair so that your hair would grow. But the opposite is true. Everything is in moderation, right? So just because braiding your hair can rest it and allow your hair to grow in that specific period of time, you can also develop these issues if you overly use those styles. So basically, she's been doing this off and on for years, ever since she was probably a child. And she speaks about having thinning edges as a child as well, which happened from relaxers, which is a chemical. That's chemical damage. So you can also have chemical damage, which can result in traction alopecia as well.
Good point. And
Mhm.
how would you describe her emotional or psychological profile when you received her as a client, just given that she's dealing with this hair loss? I mean, how has that affected her lifestyle wise, if at all?
I don't think it has affected her as much because of her personality. She's very resilient, but she's also very smart, and did her research and knew where she had to go to get the help that she needed once she was willing to address it. Because I think first you have to be willing to address that there's a problem, and that is the hardest part, is admitting and accepting that you're dealing with hair loss. Once you're ready to do that, then the next step is to find the necessary specialist that's going to be able to help you, figure it out. So
Good.
yeah, she's
And
not
so,
stressed by it. She's very hopeful. And that's something that's rare that you see with clients with hair loss. So she's an exception right now.
but I like that you're just being accurate about what's going on with each of these case studies. And
Hmm.
so the primary goal you said for her and with her is to reduce the rate of hair loss.
Yes, exactly. Prevention, reduce the rate of hair loss, and encourage growth where she still has, active hair follicles.
Okay, yeah. So our hope is that we might see some
Some
new
growth.
growth, but
Right.
if we could just reduce the loss, the rate of
Yes.
shedding, the rate of loss of the
Yes.
hair, that would
Yes.
be a positive for her.
Yep, and thicken up the strands where she still has hairs. Maybe those hairs are growing in kind of thin, vellus hairs. So trying to thicken up those hairs would also be helpful as well.
Good. Yeah, and I like how you mentioned in passing with her that
Mhm.
sometimes what we were taught as being a solution years ago, when there's more data, you can find out that that solution, when taken too far, can actually cause harm. So
Right,
the braiding was thought to be a help years ago, but really the new data shows that if it's braided too long, then you're going
right.
to end up having counter
These
issues as
issues.
well.
Yeah, braided too long or too tight. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, in our culture as Black people, braids and locks and these different types of hairstyles is part of our culture, part of our identity. But when they're overused, then a problem can happen, and that problem is traction alopecia. So just trying to help people navigate through that, how they can wear it, but do it safely, is also been helpful as well for clients.
And I just because I don't want to forget this question a little bit further down the road, so I'm going to ask you now. With
Hmm.
you talking about, you need to get the help of a good professional, which we very much agree with. Um, are you only able to help people that can get in to see you physically, or can you help somebody if you're in New York, they're in California, they see this particular video, they need help? Can you help from afar, or do you need to see
Yeah.
somebody in
So
your?
I can do both. So I always would prefer to see a person and to see a client in person because I feel like I could give them the best help that they need in person. Because sometimes pictures or videos can be a little deceiving, and I'm a person I like to touch just to see what I'm working with, right? But also being a trichologist, I've been able to meet other trichologists from other parts of the world. So I do have like a bit of a network of trichologists that I could recommend some clients who may be in another state too. So that's an option as well. Now, if they decide not to go with that trichologist, then yes, I am available for virtual visits as well. But I
Okay,
also would like the client to get the best out of it as well. And to me, for you to get the best results, you should see someone in person.
good. So you've got a network of trichologists that you can
Yeah.
refer most people to, but
Yes.
you're also willing to help in a pinch. Or if
Yeah.
somebody just says, "Hey, I
In a
vibe
pinch.
well with
Yeah.
you.
Exactly. Yes.
I like who you are, I like how you are. I want to talk to you. I feel comfortable." You
Right.
could help.
Yes. Of course. I'm open to it for sure.
Okay, right on. Let's look at case study number two.
Okay, no problem. Okay, right. So case study number two, I'm so excited about because this client, she's really sweet, has a great personality, and she was just ready to try whatever I wanted. And it was really nice to work with her. But she's been experienced this particular hair loss for years now, maybe about 20 years or longer. And so she has two different types of hair loss that is taking place right now on her scalp. So the first one that she has, that you can see in the picture, that's the back of her head, and this alopecia areata that she's dealing with in the back right there, and it's just like a band of hair loss that she has, and it goes up into the sides a little bit as well. So now in the picture, it's in this first image right here, it's even more bare than the picture allows. But she did have a lot of hair loss in that back area of her scalp. And alopecia areata is a type of hair loss that is autoimmune related. So basically, your immune system attacks the hair follicle and it causes you to sometimes get patchy hair loss, or sometimes you might get this band of hair loss as well. And that's what she's dealing with in the back, right? Now, in the sides, these two images on the sides, that's more of the androgenetic alopecia that she's dealing with, and that's more of a genetic predisposition that she's experiencing there. So for her, I have my notes for her because she's using quite a few things. I'm just gonna get my notes for her. So she is using the NeoGenesis hair growth serum. She's also using the capulus to reduce inflammation because she has some inflammation of her scalp. She complains a lot about pain, itching as well. So the capulus, the laser, is a device that you can use to help reduce inflammation and also energize your hair follicles. And it works well in pairing with the NeoGenesis serum as well. She's also using a couple of supplements. So she's using all of these are from Advanced Trichology. She's using the DHT blocker, and she's also using the EFA Complete, and she's using a stem cell shampoo that's going to also help reduce DHT in the front and sides of her hair. So that is what she's been using, and she's been getting great results. This client is 56 years old.
Awesome.
Yes,
Yeah. And the other thing that I want to point out on those images, that fourth image from left to right, you did that. That's with a scope. So we're
right.
gauging not only with aerial shots, but we've also got a scope that you're using to measure new growth and if it's vellus or terminal hair growth.
Yes,
And do you want to
yes.
mention the difference between those two forms of growth that you're tracking?
Yes, so the vellus hairs are basically the hairs. Well, the terminal hairs are the healthier strands of hairs on your head. And when you're going through androgenetic alopecia, when you're experiencing androgenetic alopecia, what happens is that your terminal, more healthy hairs, they convert or they shrink in size and they become vellus like hair. So those are the thin, fine peach fuzz hairs that you could sometimes see. So that is what's happening in this image. That's the side image of her hair, and that shows a lot of vellus hair. Some of them you can't even see because they're very light and very thin, but that is what she's experiencing in that scope right there, in that
Awesome.
scope image right there. And
Good.
the goal here with these treatments that were recommended would be for her to start seeing more thicker strands of hair grow as the other strands shed. The vellus strands shed, we would like to see more terminal growth in those areas.
Good.
Or another option is preventing some of those strands that have terminal hairs, preventing those from turning into vellus hairs as well. So it's
So
all about
terminal
the
hairs can
balance.
turn into vellus hairs?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because
Good.
the
Good.
terminal hairs are the healthy hairs. You see those thicker strands, and
Yeah.
over time they shrink up and they'll turn into those thin, fine peach fuzz vellus hairs, basically.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then let's go to our third case study that we're launching together.
Right. Okay.
Drum roll.
Okay. So now this is a case of the same type of hair loss that I mentioned earlier. So that's the androgenetic alopecia. Now this one is also related to a genetic predisposition that this client has. And again, she did have some other stressors that were causing that kind of like I would say triggered or unmasked this particular type of hair loss. So what happened is that she had very severe anemia, which she received a lot of shedding at the time. And the shedding is called telogen effluvium. So she had a lot of shedding all around her scalp. It went on for about 6 months before she realized what was going on, that she had to go to the doctor. They had to give her give her iron supplements. And once that happened, once she started getting the shedding from the low iron, what else happened is that it triggered the androgenetic alopecia to show up as well. So this is what she's dealing with now. She no longer has the diffuse hair loss, the shedding all over her scalp, but she's still dealing with the androgenetic alopecia now, from the fact that she had that low iron. So one type of problem can cause another in this case. In this case, it was the low iron that triggered the shedding, the massive amounts of shedding, and it unmasked the genetic hair loss that she already was, kind of like was already there, kind of lurking, but maybe it just wasn't as prominent. And once she started having all of that shedding take place, it unmasked it and caused the front hairline to look even thinner than it was before. And this is what she's dealing with right now. And she is also a 50-year-old woman as well. And she's using the NeoGenesis serum. She's also using the Hair Max laser comb to energize her follicles and to reduce inflammation, because she gets a lot of pain, which is very common with people who get androgenetic alopecia. In the affected areas, they will receive some pain in those areas. She's also using a DHT blocker and a nutritional supplement as well, just for all around health, because she
Good.
is a more stressed out client as well.
Lifestyle stress going on.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. Another big contributing factor.
Yes.
COVID really
Mhm.
led to a lot of additional hair loss cases, from what we
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, and even just the hair loss itself and not knowing why it's happening or not being able to get the help that you need, that will cause stress as well. So the stress of hair loss can cause even more damage, more hair loss to appear as
Good
well.
point. Good
Mm-hmm.
point. Yeah.
That
So just to touch on the hair thickening serum
serum,
from
yes.
NeoGenesis briefly.
Mm-hmm.
So the science behind the hair thickening serum is we're helping to put back into the follicle and the tissue that surrounds the follicle nutrients that the skin would normally be providing itself when it was young and healthy, but is
Right.
no longer able to provide itself either due to age or due to stresses like you're mentioning or other causes. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
typically the benefits that people point out with the hair thickening serum, the first benefit is in the first 30 days, just a reduction in the shedding of the hair, which you said psychologically is so important to reduce
Yeah.
that shedding first and foremost.
Yes, I'm
And then
sorry to cut you off, but even that stresses people because they don't want to wash their hair. They won't even wash their hair for weeks because they don't want to see the shedding. You know what I mean? And you can't do that,
good
So
point.
yeah. Sorry, I didn't
Interesting.
cut your
No,
wisdom.
I like that. You jump in
Yeah.
anytime you want. This is about your expertise. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But the second benefit that people report about the hair thickening serum in month 2, month 3 is typically that thickening of the hair shaft that you were
Right.
talking about. And it feels, you
Yeah.
can feel it when you run your fingers through your hair. And then we're
Yes.
typically trying to get through 2 or 3 growth cycles to be looking for that new growth. And like you said, we're then looking for that terminal growth versus the vellus growth. And
Right.
that's where those scope pictures are going to come in handy. So I
Right.
know what we're doing is we're taking these 3 clients. We're going to be on a 6-month journey with them. And
Right.
with everybody that's viewing this helpful video that we've done today, we're going to be revisiting in roughly 2 months. So about October 15th, then in about 4 months, so around December 10th or 15th, and then another 2 months, so around February 15th. And we're going to be looking at updated pictures, and we're going to be looking at how the hair is progressing and how each case study is progressing to see how well these strategies are helping people that have these very stressful hair conditions that you've been able to describe here today.
Right. Yes, that's great. I like that. And now I do have a question for you from some of my clients as well. And one of the questions is, what makes the hair thickening serum, the NeoGenesis serum, different from other serums on the market?
We're arguably the most organic hair serum to begin with because what we've done is we're mimicking what Mother Nature does. We have stem cell lines that come from the literal tissue surrounding the hair follicle that people would typically, if they're going in and getting like a biopsy done, if they've got a clean biopsy, the doctor might ask them, do you want to contribute your skin to a tissue bank? Those tissue banks, which are FDA controlled and regulated, so they're very safe. We're
Right.
typically then selecting tissue from those tissue banks, and then we're culturing that tissue until it releases these beautiful stem cell released molecules, these molecules themselves.
Right.
And the molecules, when they're released in that particular fashion, which is unique to us, they're enveloped in something called an exosome. And the
Right.
exosome both protects those molecules and then also seeks out damaged tissue or damaged follicles and goes up to those damaged follicles and actually docks to them and then sends those molecules across to heal them. So
Yeah.
that's what we do that's unique to Neogenesis.
Okay, great. Now, another question. One other question is, um, if you stop using this serum, will your hair, fall out or stop growing the way it was while you were using the serum? That's also a very big concern because with other serums on the market or other, scalp treatments on the market that help with hair loss, once you stop using it, you start to see that, thinning hair again.
I love that question. And I would tell you that, as you know, we're a science based, data based organization. And
Right.
I would tell you that we're still collecting more data on that of over a longer periods of time, what happens with the hair if you go down to a maintenance program, if you
Right.
stop the use of the product altogether. What we
Mhm.
know so far from the trichology community is that at least in the short term, if you stopped using the product altogether, it does not have an immediate
Yeah.
reversal back to the
Yeah.
prior state. But over a longer term, like say a year, 2 years, 3 years,
Maybe it
we're
might.
still looking to collect more data on that, candidly. But a
Yeah.
lot of people go down to a maintenance program. So they go from once a day to maybe twice a week, and they
Right.
seem to be fine.
Yes, yes. And I've noticed that with my own clients, who have maybe took a little break in between for whatever reason. Sometimes consistency is also an issue for some people. But there were no, issues with them stopping for a moment. So yes, I've been able to testify to that as well.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Awesome.
Yes. Yep.
Well,
Hmm.
this was fun. This is it's about you and what you're bringing forward to help people. I love that you're working primarily with women of color, but you work with men of color as well. But you're
Yes.
just serving that niche that once again has been overlooked, underserved. I'm hoping that you're able to get the word out, and we're able to help you get the word out because we need to help more people, like in general. But just I love what you're wanting to do with your practice in particular.
Yes, and I will add that the hair loss that I see a lot is really like the harder hair. Most of them are harder to treat, right? So that's the reason why sometimes they're kind of like don't get the information or they don't get the help that they need when they go into certain specialists. But hopefully over time, at least they'll have other options. They'll know, what's out there for them, and they won't just feel like they have to cover it up, because that's what a lot of people do. They end up not talking about it or getting help, or they just cover it up. or they use hairstyles to try to camouflage it, which can actually make the hair loss, worse. So I thank you for taking the time to work with us as well.
Awesome. So October 15th, people mark your calendars. We'll be sending out an invite as well. But and then in the meantime, you've seen Sophia's contact information. I just would really encourage you to reach out to her. As she said, whether you're near her or afar, she can help you out, and it's her passion to help you out. So please take advantage of her while you can.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Okay, have a good
Sophia.
day.
Bye, Mackenzie.
Bye. See you later.